We are less than a week in, and Josh Seiter is already imploding. What's up, everybody? Ty Rivera here, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. Before we get started, I'm just going to ask that you like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to comment just to help me on the algorithm, but you don't know what to comment, just comment, "You've really done it this time," because I guarantee you I'm going to piss a lot of people off, and I am not going to mind because I think people on both sides need to hear this, and I'm tired of everybody. All right, you guys. So first, I want to start off with an apology. In the last video, I said that, well, I asked if everybody was stupid, which I don't apologize for that because I'm always going to be fun on my channel, and that's just the way I phrase things. I talk to you guys like I would talk to an actual friend, and actually a lot of you in the comments I consider to be my friends now because you guys have been watching for so long. So there's that. So I don't apologize for my phrasing or being fun, but I do apologize because it hadn't occurred to me that there are a fair amount of people out there that hadn't realized that this was not a serious thing, that he was not actually trans. I personally just have hung out with so many trans women from, like I say, all over the spectrum. The girls that weren't the most passing, the girls that were just trying to figure it out. You know, I've hung out with a lot of trans people in my life, and some that have detransitioned. There's always one in particular that I think of that was a situation like that, where she had detransitioned so that she could have a relationship with her parents again, and then at a point transitioned again because she was like, yeah, I've got to live for me again. I can't stay in this forever. And so, like I said, I get it that there's people over the spectrum, but a lot of me goes on what I feel off of people. And just with Josh Seiter, I never felt anything genuine in what he was doing or the way he was acting. And somebody mentioned me yelling, which I'll never apologize for because I'm always going to give whatever emotion I have. And if you notice, sometimes I run through the emotions on my videos. I'm not going to apologize for adding the real me to these videos, which is why I think a lot of people watch, is because I am being the real me. Okay, so just to get in the Josh Seiter situation, this is quickly imploding, and I'll tell you why. The reason it's imploding is because it's not turning out to feel genuine at all. And I think that's what I picked up off of him the most in everything that's been going on. And he's not seeing the kind of growth that I'm sure he thought he was going to experience. His Instagram has gone down several thousand. His Twitter has gone up, which Twitter is where a person like him would probably see the most interaction and the most growth. On Wednesday, when I recorded the other video, he was at 9,800 followers. And then as of today, he's at 19,000 exactly. So he's gained under 10,000 followers in the week after you come out of this huge, what was supposed to be really successful hoax. Tells you that it wasn't really that successful. He only gained about 10,000 followers. I've had friends that have gone from like 10,000 to 50,000 within the span of a couple of days and not done anything that was viral to the level that his was. And also, if you look at the interactions on his, yeah, there are some people that are hardcore supporting, but he's not getting nearly as much engagement as you would think that he's supposed to. I mean, he's really swinging, but he's not getting the engagement that he should. This grift is not going to work out well for him. Like I told you guys, when these things happen at first, yeah, everybody will want to have these people on. But then people will quickly realize that they're kind of one note. Like Josh Seiter is very much a one-trick pony, and his actions are very contradictory. Like he claims to love women and want to protect women, but at the same time, if you notice on his Twitter, if a woman questions him, he'll very quickly get very defensive with her and start berating her in the comment. Like there's this woman that he got mad at because she posted something under a ridiculous post that he put up, where he was making it seem like, oh, it was so taxing doing this character. Trust me, it wasn't that taxing doing this character. He wasn't living full time as a trans person, which is part of the thing that I have a problem with. But we'll get to that in a second. But here's the tweet that he put up and where he got defensive with this woman. In all seriousness, I almost didn't tough out the social experiment. For 5 months, I had to pretend to be a deluded man putting on woman face while embracing the worst stereotypes about women. Then I had to sit passively me while over 50 million people viewed my videos and had to silently read hundreds of thousands of negative comments day after day for 5 months. But I love women and I want to protect them from the threat of trans ideology, so it was worth it in the end. So then this woman put, I appreciate what you did massively, although I find it odd that you're being interviewed by the big time misogynist Tate brothers. I don't hate you for it, I just find it odd. So then he put, listen to my message in interviews and stop obsessing over distractions, weirdo. So then this woman chimes in and is like, weirdo, question mark. She was expressing a view many of us have. We've been screaming from the rooftops about the dangers and misogyny of this movement to crickets or death threats. You put on a dress and some lipstick and suddenly everyone listens, even the misogynist. And then she also says, and you're making bank at it. So many women have lost jobs because of gender ideology. We've sacrificed so much, and you're getting 50 million hits on presumably monetized content. Listen, I'm glad you've shown a light on what's happening, but now it's time to put your money where your mouth is if you really care about women. And Josh Seiter responds to that with, you dimwit, I lost money and foot the bill for 6 months of filming and traveling for this experiment. Are you mentally compromised? And then she responds with, wow, you sound rather misogynistic. Why am I not at all surprised? And then on that thread in particular, you start to see more and more women turning against him, which is going to happen more and more because there's no way to keep up something that you are not at all passionate about. So then one of his tweets that lets you know, this show is incredible. It's a bunch of brainwashed, misogynistic Muslim men trying to find love, and it ends up being hours of them verbally abusing women for wanting to have basic human rights. Reminds me a lot of how trans-identified men are erasing women's rights in America. But then he does an interview with Tristan Tate, which if you don't know, all of the charges that Tristan Tate and Andrew Tate are up against, there are a litany of trafficking charges and abuses, which even if you only believe some of them, there's always some truth to these kinds of stories. Plus, Andrew Tate himself is Muslim. One woman said being suspicious of someone who said he's defending women's spaces, but also is friends with traffickers isn't a cancel culture shame game. It's really valid suspicion. I'm hoping you're just not clued on the evidence against the Tates because they lie about it. So they're really coming after him for that. And then one of his tweets he put up is, I'll interview with anybody at any time. I don't play your pathetic shame game meant to scare people into staying silent. I'm going to try to line up interviews with Bill O'Reilly and Matt Lauer just to piss off you soft, emotional crybabies. Which Bill O'Reilly and Matt Lauer have both been accused of being sexually inappropriate with women. And that doubling down is not going to help him out in this type of situation because he's really shitting on the exact audience that he's claiming to stand up for. Like, should a woman that's worried about the safety of women and girls not at all be skeptical of a person that's being interviewed by one of the Tate brothers and really excited about it when they are legitimately up against a bunch of charges? And somebody in the comments was saying that they've been acquitted of charges. They haven't been acquitted of charges. They're still going through the process right now, which I'm not saying 100% that the Tate brothers did it, innocent until proven guilty. But I've watched a lot of different channels that really go through what some of the charges are, and it sounds pretty bad. So are you only trying to protect women from trans ideology? Because I don't think that's the whole of the fight. And I don't think that it comes off as very genuine when that's all you're doing. It comes off more as you having something against the trans community than having something for the female community. So you can't just dismiss it as cancel culture and insult everybody. What you really have to do in those types of situations, if you're genuine, is explain yourself. And then after you've explained yourself, if people don't get it, then you can just say, okay, well, I'm not going to feed into that. But if you're playing this role of the protector of women, of a hero to women, then you have to play the role of being a hero to women. You have to play the role of being a protector to women. You can't suddenly turn on them. But I am truly convinced that he just thought he was going to have like a Dylan Mulvaney type of success. And then the community didn't really embrace him like that. And yeah, people liked making fun of him. People liked laughing at him. And I have no doubt that he got 50 million views over the 5 months that he was doing his thing. But at the same time, that's not the level that he would want to be at to be able to do Like, for example, he still has an OF, which if you're doing well enough off of your social media, you would probably not want to have the OF at some point because you don't really need it and it's just extra work for nothing. Which that part could be debatable, but it just doesn't seem like the things he's doing, the way he's moving, or the way he's talking are commensurate with a person that is really having success. Like I said before, he's been on a bunch of podcasts. He's getting a bunch of exposure, but he's really not making the splash that he thought he was going to make. And this little bit of heat that he's having really is only going to last a quick minute because it's just not the kind of thing that you can sustain. Like, how long are people going to want to hear about the fact that he basically would wear a costume a couple of times a week for 5 months and do a character? How interesting is that going to be to the general public? But if you're a person like Josh Seiter and you said that you did this social experiment and you lived as a trans person, to me, to say you lived as a trans person, if you were going 24/7 and yeah, accessing female spaces, not to disrespect women, but to show people exactly how easy that was. But the truth is, I think that if Josh had tried to do that, he would have found out that it wouldn't necessarily be that easy. I think he would have been stopped in a lot of public situations where people would have been like, yeah, you don't go in the women's bathroom. And that's a lot of what we on the LGBT side have been trying to tell you guys, is that we don't support this either. Like, let's say they're genuinely gay, but not truly trans, which what people have a problem with the term true trans, but true trans really is a person that has gender dysphoria. And a lot of people push back on me on that and try to make it seem like I'm enabling mentally ill behavior by acknowledging that there is such a thing as true transsexual or true gender dysphoric. But am I also enabling mental illness when I acknowledge that my other friends, some of them are bipolar? Am I encouraging mental illness when I'm supportive of my friends that are schizophrenic? And we all know that right now, a lot of people on TikTok or some of the different apps are faking mental illness for clout. That's a thing, right? So if I were to do something similar to what Josh is doing and say schizophrenia became the trend, everybody was pretending to be schizophrenic. So then I pretended to be schizophrenic once a week on TikTok, or every time I wanted to record a TikTok, and was mimicking the symptoms of a true schizophrenic. And then I decided to finally come out and let you guys know that not only was I not hearing voices, but schizophrenia isn't even really a thing. Or that I think that the treatment for schizophrenia should be different because I pretended to be schizophrenic on TikTok once or twice a week. To me, that's what it's the same as. And some of you I know will argue that that's something different, but it's really not. Because whether you like it or not, gender dysphoria, which is what transsexual actually is in the DSM-5. So if we're now going to start having laid people start to decide what mental illnesses or mental disorders are and are not allowed and are or are not valid, I think we're going to run into a lot of trouble. And also on that note, I didn't care for the doublespeak Josh was doing because he claimed that he was doing this for trans people. And I know Josh has had his own struggles with mental health, and I'm not even trying to make fun of that or act like that's a bad thing. I am a very big proponent for mental health and people taking care of their mental health, if you guys didn't know. I've talked about it a lot before, but that is 100% true and something that I am really for, is taking the stigma off mental illness, no matter what it is. I really do feel like these are things people should be able to work on openly, and I feel like we as a society, if we're trying to help these people, really should try to be as understanding as we possibly can, even if we don't suffer from that mental illness or we can't understand it. Like, if I was pretending to, like I said, be schizophrenic, and then I was like, I don't hear voices, so nobody must hear voices. You guys, do you hear voices? Oh, you don't hear voices either? I told you there's no voices. These people clearly don't need to be on medication. None of them do. I don't mean the fakers on TikTok. I mean all of them just need to chill out a little bit and stop hearing the voices. Trust me, guys, there are no voices. That's the way I see pretending that it's just completely not a thing. Yeah, gatekeeping and actually having to go through the proper mental health evaluations to be able to move forward into your transition, that is something I'm 100% for. Not transitioning kids, I cannot say it enough. That is something that I am 1,000% in support of, is not making any changes to kids. A lot of people don't pay attention, but I've said before, when I was young, I thought I was meant to be a woman. I grew out of it once I realized that being a gay man was an option. But I was told misinformation by my older sister when I was very young. The way she phrased it was, if you don't like girls, then you must be a girl. And she wasn't saying it towards me. She was just saying it as a matter of fact, like when kids talk. But you're a kid and you're innocent and you don't know anything. And so I really did think that. And once I realized that being a gay man was an option, I was fine with that and I didn't need to do anything to myself. And so I think we need to really let people grow into what they grow into, and I will stand by that forever. My mind will never change on that. Plus, you need all of your growth and all of your development to transition once you want to transition anyway. Not just mentally, but also physically. And there are things that are very important, like when it comes to sexual function. And with every true transsexual I've ever known, because different people argue what makes a person trans, and they'll be like, do they have to have this surgery? Do they have to have the bottom surgery? Do they have to? Well, really, for true trans people, it is a matter of getting on the hormones, which I've been told by my friends on both sides, female to male and male to female, that once they got on the hormones, it really did level them out, which is what you experience if you're an actual man and your hormone levels are deficient. Once you get on testosterone, a lot of things level out. Like your sleep is better, you have more energy, you get rid of a lot of the brain fog. Like I can see how that's happened since I've been on testosterone, and I'm a man. So I really do understand when true trans people say that helped them level out. And yeah, I do think that they should continue to do studies on this. And I do think that the more that we're supportive of true trans people, the more open they can be with doctors and therapists, and then maybe we can find a way so that maybe there is at a point no need for people to actually go through transition. I don't think that's completely impossible to imagine either. And I know that a lot of people say that it's trauma related. Well, a lot of mental illness is trauma related. So why would a person being actually transsexual and that being trauma related discount them any more than any other mental disorder being trauma related? To me, that doesn't make sense at all. And I'm not trying to defend anybody, but I am saying that when a person like Josh Seiter goes out of their way to make it seem like a mental disorder just isn't a thing or doesn't need the therapy that doctors have decided that it actually does need. And Josh Seiter himself says that he really respects J.K. Rowling and he thinks she's so smart and whatever else. But J.K. Rowling has talked about transsexual herself, and a lot of people don't want to say it because it doesn't suit their narrative. But J.K. Rowling has said things that would let you know that she's actually very supportive of actual transsexual people, and she does actually believe that transition can be very beneficial for a very small part of the population, which is something I've said over and over and over. So I don't know why everybody wants to paint everything with these black and white brushes and just be like, this is this and that's that. Also, does anybody find it at all convenient that Josh Seiter just happened to come out a couple weeks before the election when he would be able to get the most mileage out of making this announcement? Does that seem weird to anybody at all? And that's exactly the way he's gone. So then you go to the political grift. The other thing that he underestimates is the level of homophobia that some people on the far right, which is what he's trying to appeal to, really do have. So whether or not you stopped wearing the dress, they're still going to see you as the guy that was wearing the dress. They're still going to see you as gay, and if they're homophobic, they're still not going to want to follow you. You're not going to change their mind by being a faux straight guy because he's not even actually straight. he's at the very least bisexual. He dated one of the girls from RuPaul's Drag Race, which is a really weird situation because he denied it, and then she provided receipts in the form of like actual screenshots of when he had in his bio taken by Monica Beverly Hills. That was the name of the queen that he was dating. Then he was saying, I only hung out with her 3 times or that kind of thing. But there were pictures of them on his Instagram. And so it's like the grift isn't going to be what he's thinking it's going to be. And also, when it comes to the TERFs, anybody that's not familiar, trans exclusionary radical feminists, those are the most hardcore of the feminists, and those women are really going to hold him to a standard that he's not going to be ready for. Like I talked about those tweets. Those tweets are a good example of the kind of things that people are going to start to question him about, which I am always very honest with you guys. I am 100% for women, but I'm also 100% for true transsexuals. And I don't think that those things have to be mutually exclusive. But I do understand why a person like Josh would choose to do a grift rather than be a genuine person, because when you're a genuine person, people will get mad at you. Like you see it in the comments all the time. You'll probably see it in the comments of this video as well. Some of the extreme feminists will get mad at me because they'll say that if I support trans women, or if I use the word women in any other context than just with genetic females, then I'm not being an ally to women. And the last thing I want to ever be is an ally to anybody. I throw up in my mouth anytime somebody seriously uses that word, to tell you the truth. Like when somebody's like, you're a true ally to, gross. Don't put me in that category. I support what I support. I support common sense. I am very middle of the road. There are more middle of the road people than there are the extremists, but the extremist will give you more support. The extremist will share your stuff more. The everyday person, the person that I appeal to for the most part, the level-headed person is like, yeah, I like that. It was good. It was fun. And yeah, they'll say some really nice things sometimes, but they're not going to be fanatical about it and share it everywhere and let everybody know that I was saying this particular thing. And for those of you that do, I really do appreciate it. But you know that for the most part, we are not that crowd. Like if you're sensible in middle of the road, you're sensible in middle of the road about kind of everything. So yeah, you'll get super excited about certain things and you'll share them, or you'll let other people know about it, but you're not going to turn your whole life into it. And the kind of thing that Josh Seiter is doing really is the kind of thing that you have to dedicate your life to. You really have to be worried all the time about every injustice that's happening to every woman, and the microaggressions as well. We cannot forget the microaggressions, because those matter too. And misogyny, you've really got to turn your whole life into being about misogyny, and you've got to atone for the fact that you were doing woman face. And some people aren't just going to take you at face value and everything you say, but then they have their own problems, because they too are taking the wrong route by trying to act like they are the deciders of what is and isn't legitimate mental illness and the way that those illnesses should be treated. And that's where they're undoing themselves, and they're on their way to a path to destruction. Like Sal Grover tweeted not too long ago, how about we don't call them sex changes at all, because they're not. No human being can sex change. Okay, well, most people call them gender reassignment surgeries nowadays anyway, so maybe in Australia guys are backwards, which you can debate whether or not sex and gender are different all you want, but she's using the wrong terminology for this tweet, unless she was tweeting this back in the 90s, or even the early 2000s. But 2024, gender reassignment surgery is what most people call them, or gender affirming surgeries are another term. So, and then she put, and the surgeries and drugs aren't administered on anyone young, vulnerable. Okay, good so far. Imprisoned, traumatized, or mentally ill. Okay, well, a lot of mental illness is trauma-based, and if the mental illness that you're suffering from is gender dysphoria, which again, I will repeat, is in the DSM-5. So why would adults not be able to be treated with what the doctor thinks is the best course of action? We encourage the far less lucrative, but significantly less regretful talk therapy for anyone having issues with their identity. Get people grounded in reality and work on accepting the body they have. And if we're talking about kids, yeah, but once you get to the adult stages, if you've been suffering with gender dysphoria for that long, and now you are fully ready and you've probably been going to talk therapy, because ideally that's the way it would work, right? Like during a person's young years, if they're dealing with gender dysphoria and they need to talk to a therapist, then they go through that. And then by the time they reach adulthood, it's either been worked out to a certain degree, or it's at that point probably going to be the doctor's recommendation, if they've been doing talk therapy for years, that they move on to the next step, which would be to start transition. And who is Sal Grover? Which I'm liking her less and less, to be honest, because who is Sal Grover to be able to tell other people what they can and can't do at that point? Like, she is not a medical professional. Technically, she couldn't even get an app off the ground. No tea, no shade, but I'm just tired of pretending that this is some successful woman that knows a lot of things. I mean, like, yeah, when at first she was a sympathetic character, I was 100% had her back. And I thought she should have been able to run her app the way that she wanted to run it. But since then, she's turned into a grift as well. Like, I get it. If you don't want trans women in certain spaces, or you don't want trans women on your app in particular, 100% I have your back. But when you start acting like you're an actual medical professional and like, just try sipping some tea. Tea has always worked for me. I don't know why you have to deal with this silly mental illness that you have. It doesn't seem real to me, because why does your mental illness mean that you need to wear the same clothing that I wear? I mean, this is my clothing. You're wearing me as a costume. Never mind the fact that I'm reducing myself to only being a costume. You're taking womanhood from me. Never mind the fact that if I were actually secure in what I was, I would know that nobody could take womanhood from me. You're erasing us. Never mind the fact that if I were an exceptional person, nobody would be able to erase me in the first place. And yes, I know some women are going to get mad at me for saying this, but I'm tired of being expected to mistake weak bitches for strong women. I know strong women. I know weak bitches. Sal Grover is now starting to really veer over into the weak bitch lane. And it's not because I have trans friends. It's just because she has realized that this is a very lucrative grift for her at this point. She raised $500,000 for her first round on Tickle v Giggle. And I'm sure she didn't go through all that money. She's got a podcast and she acts like, I can't believe my life is about this. You made your life about it. At a point, you choose to make your life about it. And then you try to make it seem like you're doing this altruistic thing for other women. No, the truth is, you like the fame, you like the money. You are getting money. You raised over $500,000 for your first case, Tickle v Giggle, and now you're going to do the appeal, but I'm sure your lawyers aren't that expensive. I had a friend that had a case going that was $10,000 a month, so you're still doing all right if you ask me. It hasn't been that many months. What have you spent? 10, 20% of what you actually got? And you're doing another round of fundraising? I see you, Sal Grover. Cute, but not cute. Get people grounded in reality and work on accepting the body they have. Okay, yeah, like I said, let's apply that to all mental illness. Get people grounded in reality and get them used to the mind that they have. No meds for anybody anymore. Sal Grover said it, everybody. Sal Grover is now the authority on all mental health. So whatever you're doing, whatever pills you're taking, stop taking them. That goes for men, women, everything in between. Only the strong will survive. I'm 100% for it, to tell you the truth. I hope it works out, Sal. Really push for it. Everybody should just have a cup of tea, and if it doesn't work out after that, well, do what you gotta do. Any male who goes into a female-only space should be breaking a law. Well, that's the thing you're not getting, Sal, is new generation, there aren't gonna be gendered spaces anymore. And that's something that's just happening more and more. I live in Austin, Texas. We have fewer and fewer gendered spaces every time I go out. And I mean that 100% seriously. And more, I think that's the way the world's going. And also, when you guys say that you're protecting girls from having to be in spaces with men, well, if you're talking about trans women, a lot of new generation young girls don't have a problem with that. A lot of new generation young girls have grown up on RuPaul's Drag Race, and that was their first introduction, and they're seeing differently gendered people all over the place. So all these arguments are really for old people like you and me, Sal. That's 100% what it is, which I know I definitely am a bit older than you, but you're closer to my range than you are to the young ones. And that's what you're not getting. So all you old that want to just keep fighting about these there's women's spaces and this is so misogynistic and I just need, yeah, shut up. Everybody's getting tired of you, and you're going to make yourselves just as miserable and unbearable as the trans activists did. And for anybody that's mad at me for saying this right now, be mad. Because trans activists were mad at me the same way when they were going through their bullshit, and I was telling them the same thing. I was saying, hey, I very much do support transsexual people. I do support the trans movement. But you guys are being miserable and unbearable, and you're not getting that you're going to turn people against you. And that's exactly what they've done. Just like I'm saying now, the TERFs are turning people against them. And I am a canary in the coal mine when you think about it, because I am one of the most staunch supporters of these particular groups. If you had asked me, say 2 months ago, how I felt about TERFs, I would have told you I really support TERFs. And then I saw the kinds of things that they were doing and the kinds of things that they were saying and the way that they were really starting to bully people. And it just got like, yeah, this is not something I would ever support from any gender or any person. You guys are a bunch of angry women trying to make it seem like you speak for all women. And that's the most insulting part about it, is when they would try to tell me, you don't support women. No, I don't support you. I don't support your bullshit. I still 100% do support women. But yes, I don't care who you are, male, female, trans, gay, straight, whatever you are. If you are being a bully and a miserable human being, I will not support you. I will withdraw my support and be like, yeah, you figure that shit out on your own. But yes, I agree, no biological men and women's sports. Same for no boys and girls sports. This would at least be a start. And then, like I said, her dumbass had Josh Seiter on her podcast the other day. So are you really worried about women's spaces, or is your thing more against trans people? Because that's what it's starting to look like at this point. It's less about protecting women and it's more about slamming trans people, whether they're the trans rights activists that we've all been talking about or actual transsexuals. But I still maintain that if people were smart, all of the sensible people, whether you're gay, straight, transsexual, bisexual, black, white, brown, whatever you are, all of the sensible people would band together against the people that aren't being sensible. And yes, the trans rights activists would be a part of that. But then what you would find out, which a lot of people aren't going to like this, is that the TERFs would be a part of that too. They would be in the unreasonable pile. And to me, that's exactly the way it should be. The TERFs and the trans activists deserve each other. They deserve to be on an island together, at least mentally, until they get it together and they realize that no matter who you are, compromise is necessary. And all of society isn't going to go with your bullshit. It doesn't matter how you were born or what's between your legs. And when it comes to Josh Seiter specifically, it's just not going to work out, because it's impossible to fake something to the degree that you're going to have to fake it in order to pass the sniff test of people like the TERFs, when you're already getting off on the wrong foot by supporting people like the Tate brothers, or like a Matt Lauer, or like a Bill O'Reilly. All those people have the kind of reputations that if you're trying to protect women, you definitely would not be making efforts to align yourself with. Oh yeah, and the only person I'll apologize to is Sal Grover's mother, because I know that at a point at least she was watching me. Who knows, I may have pissed her off by now too. But if you're watching, I do apologize that I had to talk about your daughter that way, but your daughter really needs to hear it, because right now she's up. Anyway, as always, this has been Ty Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world.
They bought into his bullshit.